Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're going to learn about how to make money during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's get started. Unless you've been living under a rock, you are aware that 2020 is off to a troubling start. Work is different, any social life around it has ground to a halt. Social distancing is suddenly a word that we know and hear daily. Fear and uncertainty are widespread. We have seen an 11-year bull market come to an end. In case you don't know, a bull market is a market that is on the rise where the economy is sound, while a bear market exists in an economy that is receding, where most stocks are declining in value. Much of the world is sheltering at home in an effort to flatten the curve, the coronavirus curve. At the same time, we have seen the stock market values of some of our favorite companies drop precipitously. When panic sets in like it has for so many people thanks to the COVID-19, a few of us see opportunities to fast-track our path towards financial freedom. I have been rereading The Laws of Wealth, Psychology, and The Secret to Investing Success by New York Times best-selling author Dr. Daniel Crosby. I highly recommend giving this book a read and want to highlight a chapter properly titled Rule Number 3, Trouble is Opportunity. If these aren't troubling times, I don't know what is. More than 16 million Americans filed for unemployment in the past few weeks, with millions more underemployed or seeing their incomes drop substantially. Americans with a long list of health issues are likely to fear for their lives. People are scared, no doubt about it. But please don't let your fear cause you to miss out on some great opportunities to not only avoid financial ruin, but to build life-changing wealth. This chapter of Laws of Wealth opens with a quote I like to share with you. The time of maximum pessimism is the best time to buy, and the time of maximum optimism is the best time to sell. Sir John Templeton. You may be wondering, if now is the best time to be investing? Perhaps you're fighting the urge to sell everything and hide under your covers until this pandemic is behind us. Dr. Crosby says it is easy to talk a good game about being greedy when others are fearful, but it is quite another thing to do it. I agree. There is a reason Warren Buffett is one of the richest men in the world. He has constantly capitalized on bear markets by investing more during those declines while others have been fearful. Have you seen this before? Panic in the stock markets? As we look back through history, there has always been some fear of the day. In late 2019, there seemed to have been a running fear of an oncoming recession, simply because the last market was going on for such an extended period of time. While I fully expected the world economy to eventually fall into a recession, coronavirus was not part of the fear people had in 2019. Like all disasters before the coronavirus, I am confident that this too shall pass. We have been through wars, terrorist attacks, inflation, recession, deflation, SARS, Ebola, AIDS, the list goes on. Through it all, people suffered. As a society, we always pulled together. This time should not be any different. What are corrections and bear markets? As a mentor helping people stay on track for financial freedom in good times and bad, I fully expect there to be several more bear markets and many more corrections. In his book, Dr. Crosby defines a correction as a 10% drop in stock prices, whereas a bear market is defined as a 20% drop. He also gives us this important fact. From 1900 to 2013, the U.S. stock market experienced 123 corrections. In case you didn't notice, that is more than once per year. While bear markets are rare, we still had to suffer through one about every 3.5 years, on average, during that time frame. Please listen to the next quote from Dr. Crosby a few times. Although the media talks about 10% to 20% market losses as though they are the end of the world, they arrive as regularly as spring flowers and have not negated the tendency of markets to drastically compound wealth over long periods of time. With that in mind, you shouldn't fear corrections and bear markets. Instead, embrace them. How investors get killed in bear markets. Bear markets have a way of destroying wealth for so many people. That is more a function of how people react to fear than underlying volatility that goes with being a long-term investor. Everyone is an investing genius when stocks are soaring. But when times get tough, getting fantastic investment returns is much more difficult. In many ways, stock markets are actually the safest when they are the scariest. The greater the stock market drops, the more opportunity there can be had in the future. According to Dr. Crosby, periods of high unemployment have tended to lead to stock market outperformance. It's worth noting that the U.S. had record low unemployment before the spread of COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. In his book, Dr. Crosby also shared this quote: "Markets don't usually perform the best when they go from good to great. They actually show the best performance when things go from terrible to not quite so as terrible as before." This is highlighted perfectly when you compare the stock market returns and economy at the end of President George Walker Bush's second term into President Barack Obama's first term. One might say America went from terrible to excellent. Depending on your political views, you most likely have an opinion about whether Trump or Obama was better for the stock markets. The great thing about investing is the numbers don't lie. For example, the stock market jumped 52.2% during the first 3 years of the Trump presidency. It jumped nearly 50% more, bringing in a whopping 78.6% over the first 3 years of the Obama presidency. Of course, that was before we saw the markets plunge this year under Trump, wiping out most, if not all, stock market gains since the Trump inauguration. The chapter closes with sage advice from Dr. Crosby. If you can view corrections as natural at worst and opportunities at best, you will be positioned to profit from others' panic. What will the stock market do today or tomorrow? Nobody really knows, but I am optimistic about the future and confident that the investments I make today will help bring me closer to financial freedom in the future. As I will keep saying, this panic du jour, COVID-19 that is, coronavirus, Rona, whatever you want to call it, will pass. A few parting thoughts from Dr. Crosby that should help you make wiser financial choices in difficult times like today. Think. Bear markets, recessions, and especially uncertainty are the psychological price I pay for strong returns. Ask, do the events causing others to panic provide opportunities for me? Example, the coronavirus. Don't worry, the 24-hour cycle won't let up on the doom and gloom of the current COVID cycle. If you wait until there is a consensus that the crisis is over, you may miss your opportunity. You may miss some of the most significant opportunities to buy low and speed up your march towards financial freedom. However, you might not be interested on creating wealth as me, so at least pay attention to staying positive during the pandemic. Now here is how to stay positive in a time of uncertainty. Anxiety thrives on the unknown. By and large, despite all the ups and downs geopolitically, we've all become accustomed to a relative stability and predictability of life. Now, however our changing world is, it all but ensures waking up to a new set of rules, limitations, and changes that we haven't even thought of yet. After a certain point, our anxiety can lead us into some dark mental spaces. The anxious brain, in a desperate effort to attain some sense of certitude, fills in the uncertainty with worst-case scenarios, even if these scenarios are based on the slightest information. While it does this to keep us alert to potential dangers, hoping we'll see them coming and avoid them, it can very often lead us into panic, avoidance, rash decisions, or falling into a hole of sadness. If you're like many others, you might sometimes fall into the latter camp. Depression and anxiety go hand in hand. If all you can think are terrible outcomes, failures, and struggles with no sense of escape or agency, of course we feel depressed. It saps our energy to work. It constrains us. It constrains our sense of hope that things will get better. It overpowers our rational state of mind. There is hope. Despite your anxious brain's effort to highlight the terrible, and despite your depression sucking any sense of optimism from your day, you can find hope in the midst of a pandemic. With some intentional effort, you can learn and practice several skills that will boost your sense of confidence despite the crisis, nurture optimism, and build emotional flexibility so you can handle instability. Number 1, focus on what you can control. Fear and depression can make you feel powerless. Additionally, your anxious brain and depression can conspire against you to highlight how your life is worse and limited. You can't see your friends. The stock market is taking a nosedive along with your retirement. I'm so scared I can barely breathe. While you cannot control your feelings, your thoughts, or your actions of others, you are not powerless. Shifting your attention towards those aspects of life that you can control can help restore your sense of agency and self-confidence. Things in your control can be as simple as your daily and nightly routine, what you eat, what you wear each day. They can be as profound as how you speak to yourself, how you'll pursue your beliefs and goals, how you'll respond under pressure. Whether they be big or small, mundane or extraordinary, challenge yourself to make a list of all the things within your control. I bet you'll surprise yourself with how much will be on that list. Number 2, limit your media intake. In order to get ahead of the virus and be up to date on the WHO recommendations, you may be stuck on your phone, TV, or computer. Of course, we all want information and guidance on what we can do to keep ourselves and our families safe, but the amount of information can be a double-edged sword. My mom used to say, beware little eyes, what you see. Beware little ears, what you hear. She's never been righter. Surrounding yourself with infection rate statistics and stories of hospitals being short on medical supplies because of selfish accumulators can take a toll. If that's 100% of the information in your head, that's 100% of your truth. Limiting how much time you spend watching the news, listening to the radio, and scrolling through your social media can help restore the sense of normalcy while reducing your sense of dread. This doesn't mean putting your head in the sand, but being knowledgeable and respectful of your own emotional and psychological limits. If you start to notice yourself getting agitated, fearful, or depleted when you're seeking news, it's time for you to take a break. Very likely, general guidelines of washing your hands and maintaining social distance will not change if you take a few hours to disconnect. But remember, if you want positive information, subscribe to Billionaire Mentor. Number 3, remember that people are still working to make it better. After some time in quarantine and being surrounded by bad news, you can start to believe that nothing is getting better, thinking things like the government isn't helping, doctors don't know what they're doing, or people don't respect the health guidelines. At the risk of sounding like a cliche, we can find hope in the oft-quoted line from Mr. Rogers. When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news. My mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You'll always find people who are helping. There are stories of police officers shopping for the elderly, doctors coming out of retirement to lend a hand, and families sharing their food and toilet paper. Yes, that's right, sharing their coveted toilet paper with those in need. Your anxiety and depression can minimize these stories, so it's your job to seek them out and remind yourself that there are helpers and people who care to make the situation better. Number 4. Invest in the uplifting. Surrounding yourself with uplifting media, people, activities, and thoughts can help encourage a more optimistic and joyful mindset, even in the face of stress and loss. Consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, Billionaire Mentor. For many, this can be difficult, and you should not expect to magically change your thoughts and feelings. But the more you see, think, and do that reflects peace, happiness, and positivity, the more it can influence your mood and outlook, the better. I'm sure you've heard of comfort food. It's used to help promote a feeling of warmth and joy. It's not health food. That's not the point. So who and what are your comfort foods? People, movies, TV shows, books, or activities? Now's the time to enjoy them. Number 5, a personal schedule and goals. Using your time wisely, sticking to a routine, and being productive help promote a sense of hope that you and your life are progressing. In the face of occupational and social change, you may lose your productivity and tenacity while falling into idleness and subsequent discouragement. Instead, take some time to create a new schedule and routine in light of the changing times. While you may be socially isolating and working remotely, you can still get up and get ready for work as you normally had and commute to your newly designated home workspace in the corner of your apartment. Make space in your schedule for breaks, lunch, and chatting at the water cooler, better known as texting with friends. Continuing to take steps towards your personal and career goals can also help you maintain hope throughout all this. This may be through exercise, reading and writing, honing old skills, or acquiring new skills. While the pandemic may have put some things on hold, you should continue to take reasonable steps towards becoming your ideal self. Number 6, do your part. Lastly, if you're watching this and looking for hope, remember that you're doing your part. You, along with the rest of society, have been asked to come together under extraordinary circumstances to do something out of the ordinary. Participating in the specified safety measures joins you with millions of other people as we work together to protect ourselves and get back to business as usual. If you're feeling powerless and helpless, remember that you can do your part to wash your hands, resist the urge to hoard unnecessarily, stay home unless absolutely necessary, and encourage others to do the same. It may not feel like superhero level work, but it is superhero level work to protect your neighbors and the most vulnerable. Your seemingly small efforts add up to make a tremendous impact on your community. They add up. They mean something. Keep moving forward, and together we're going all to get out of this. Thanks for watching Billionaire Mentor. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more content. We love you and stay safe.